indications of the Neanderthal, which I was speaking years ago about, that the Neanderthal still is, or the Neo-Neanderthal is the ruler, so-called, of the planet now, or has now conquered based on that rulership. You can see that the ruling hierarchy are all redheads. You could look at the Prince, what's his name? Not Andrew, but his brother. You can look at all the movies you see out today, the TV. There's always these redhead white women that they're promoting, redhead in all your commercials. Open your eyes. Take a deeper look at who it is that they're promoting to you as the alpha human being. And it is most assuredly and invariably in the main redheaded and pale. So now you're watching the Neo-Neanderthal essentially trying to invest into your psyche who it is that you need to emulate and who it is that now rules the planet.
Mm. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. When you're looking at the Neanderthal, I know that I've read articles about them being cannibalistic. And if you're talking about 4 to 10% of that is within their genetic strand, even today, you know, I mean, where does that stand at as far as the current information that we've been talking about? I know that it's been all over the place about the blood sacrificing and so forth and so on.
Yeah, anything that has to do with red is essentially what they are dealing with now. Blood sacrifices being just one of them, being the symbology. Looking at anything red, you look at Rothschild, the Red Shield. Rothschild pretty much runs the banking system for the entire planet now. Estimated a worth at $800 trillion. If you look at the new movies that are coming out, all the superheroes now, if you're looking at children's movies coming out of, children's cartoons coming out of Japan with the hentais and all the rest of these cartoons, there are all these red-headed, white and pale Neanderthal throwbacks to what they call the superior human. The same is also evident if you're looking at the new superheroes when you look at the word Thor. The word Thor spelled backwards is Roth, and Roth in German is red. So these, everywhere you go, you will see that the Neanderthal is actually showing you who he is. And now that he is coming out showing you scientifically that this is who he is telling you that even if, instead of it being the other way around, dig the psychology, dig the reverse psychology, we know that the black African, what they call the black African, or the Nubanoid, I call the Nubanoid African, the one that the indigenous, autochthonous human being was coal black, almost to the point of disappearing at night, with a hue. That's where the hue came in. That radiated hue, that iridescence that the skin gave off in either blue or green tones. This particular human now was the original and is the dominant genetic strand. But then now they're going to reverse the psychology and tell you that if you have any bit of genetics, it's not that you are an African with some Neanderthal genetics based on interbreeding, but that you are a Neanderthal with African genetics. So what they're doing essentially is flipping the script and making you believe that the recessive can now claim dominance and say that you are a Neanderthal by essentially the interbreeding of Neanderthal with the indigenous Africans. So the ones that are in the northern part that they say have been interbred with the Neanderthals, all this being explained about him saying that, you know, those who go back to Africa are still Neanderthals, still not explaining where the Neanderthal originated. If the human is actually originated in Africa, where do you come from? And everywhere he digs on the planet, he still cannot find evidence for his existence.
Well, that might go back to what Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke about, is that they was made in a laboratory, and by, as we would say, 24 scientists, and that that is where that genetic manipulation actually took place at, and so I mean that would account for the fact why they are so interested in genetics. You don't see said the average, black, or Moorish person, interested in those types of things, is always, the promotion of it as we see within the media, via cartoon, via internet, so forth and so on, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. In fact, I would have to say, and I've said in all of my lectures as well, that Yakub had to be an insane man.
Right.
He was insane. Everybody says, well, he did create a so-called humanoid. The word we have to get to understand. That's what I call him. He says he's human, but I more deal with the word humanoid. The word oid. The word oid is most clearly is mostly connected to who he really is. The word oid is a suffix, and that suffix means resembling something, or having the appearance of, or one that resembles something specified, or something that is specialized quality of something. So if it is a humanoid, it means that if he is saying that the original human, which I call the true man being, the original true man being is actually the original starting point for the humanoid strain, no matter what it took, what variations on the theme it took. If that was the original, and he finds nothing of that in himself, then yes, as they speak about the fact that he may have been grafted, then you have to look at this as the story also, his psychological projection of this particular traumatic event of his creation or his second creation. This may be why Mary Shelley and all the rest of these people put together these monster movies called Frankenstein.
Right.
And it's Frankenstein. Frankenstein is this entity that was grafted from all these different parts to create this humanoid entity. But then what did this humanoid entity do? It came back and destroyed the village. So essentially, that's essentially what we're facing here today. If Yakub was the scientist that actually perpetrated this kind of scientific, unethical scientific practice, then we are actually paying for that in the form of this entity coming back that has no empathetic connection to black people at all, even with his connection to touching us and giving us a little bit of handouts through his different forms of so-called charity organizations. It has nothing to do with empathetic connection. And now you see in all of our religions, the Christian religion is a ripoff of the African spirituality. There has been no spirituality that originated when the Neanderthal existed. No spirituality came out of the North at all. Nothing came out of Europe. Nothing spiritual ever originated or came out of Europe, no matter what they're telling you about the Norse this or the Norse that and all of these different types of, that all migrated north, took on another language, and that was how they actually got their information. And if you look at Norse mythology, it has a connection to African mythology, but it has their own traumatic base in it. Now, I'm saying that based upon all the movies they've put out. One movie our brothers and sisters have to pay attention to is the new movie called Prometheus that came out. When you understand the story of Prometheus, you'll understand who Prometheus was and what Prometheus did in order to raise this glob of clay called humanity. And you have to look at him psychologically projecting his own inner racial memory into his stories. That's where the myths come from. It's a racial memory and an experience that comes out in the form of elaborate tales. Well, in Prometheus, seeing this glob of walking flesh that had nothing to do, barbaric, eating one another, killing one another, or walking around mindless, looking like they're suffering because of their ignorance, Prometheus steals the fires of the gods and gives it to this entity. He now becomes punished for that. Come to find out that the gods now are after Prometheus, chains him to a rock and goes after his creations. In the story, he takes his ship, goes up to look for the progenitors,